Hey, hey, hope everyone's had a good summer. I know I'm several months late with this review. At the time I'm recording it, it's about mid-July, but by the time I get it uploaded, it's going to be August sometime. So I've missed the boat. So by this point, everybody is. If you were interested in seeing this movie, you've probably already seen it, and if you listen to critics, you've probably already listened to the critics. So, I'm, nothing like closing that barn door after the horse has gone out, won the Kentucky Derby, and then been put out to stud. But, what the hell? I pride myself on being current and informative. So, just got out of Spider-Man Homecoming, and, interesting picture. Interesting picture. Spider-Man's a hard one these days because Spider-Man is essentially Marvel's Batman in that, unlike every other character that has had a go in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, there either hasn't been anything to measure it against, and if there has been, it's something so bad that everything is a step up. So Spider-Man is kind of like Batman and Superman too, in a way, in that regard, in that he's had 5 outings, 2 of which are unquestionable classics, 2 of which were unmitigated disasters, and 1 which I feel gets a lot of shit, but honestly isn't as bad as we have made it out to be. If you want more on that, go watch Movie Bob's review of Spider-Man 3. I think he hits it pretty hard on pretty evenly right between the eyes. So this one comes into it on the tail with that kind of in the middle thing of it wants to, everything it's going to do is going to be a step up from the Amazing Spider-Man movies, but it still has that specter of Tobey Maguire's first 2 Spider-Man films hanging over its head. And that's a hard thing to shake. And I think right off the bat, what makes this movie both really good and at the same time kind of feel like it's lacking a little something is that I think they made a smart choice, but it does come back to bite it a little bit, in that this movie is nowhere near as epic as any of the previous Marvel films have been. The previous Marvel movies, again, since either they were taking an unknown character or they were trying to correct something like they did with the Hulk or Captain America, each of those films have always come out feeling this is epic, this is something big. And the first 2 Spider-Man movies are like that. They are epic pictures. Watching them, you feel the weight. But this one is just, I mean, you can learn a lot when you know that the poster for this movie, one of the first posters for this movie, was Spider-Man kind of lounging and lounging, and you see the Avengers Tower in the background. I think that says a lot about the kind of the overall feel of this film, in that it's much more laid back, it's much more relaxed, it's not trying to be epic. I think it's coming from the point of view that Spider-Man is the hero of the people. He is the most commonly identified with superhero ever. He is. That was his whole claim to fame, is he was the everyman. And so this film is not trying to be a big thing. It's not trying to have the huge impact that Iron Man or Captain America or Thor or the Avengers had. It's just trying to be kind of an everyman film. And I think it does that very, very well. Now, the downside of that is after you get done watching it, you kind of feel like you haven't really watched anything of a lot of substance. It doesn't, you don't leave, at least I didn't leave going, wow, that was so freaking amazing. But I left having had a good time and liking a lot of what they did with it. They made a lot of changes to it, but they were all changes that made sense and that worked really, really well. So Tom Holland, let's just get this out of the way. Tom Holland is an awesome Spider-Man. He is, I think they cast really well. Marvel has always done a good job of casting. I don't want to say it, but I will. You know, he's no Tobey Maguire. Tobey Maguire is Peter Parker to me. He is Spider-Man to me. But this kid is good. He's good in the role, and his Peter Parker is different, and yet enough of the same to be relatable as a character. I think they went back and tried to correct a lot of the problems they had with the Amazing Spider-Man, where he wasn't a relatable hero. He was, another Edward Cullen clone. And I think they did that very, very well. The rest of the cast is all awesome. Going back to that, what I said a second ago about it being kind of a film for the everyman, is what I love especially about kind of the changes they made. I love the changes they made with the villains in this one. I love taking a lot of Spidey's villains, all of whom, like any good comic book villain, are flip sides of the hero. And all, him being kind of an ordinary guy who gets powers and has to learn how to deal with them. These are all, ordinary guys, street thugs, street toughs. These aren't guys out with, world domination plans. These aren't guys who are out, to, be the ruler or whatever. These are just blue collar guys, like literally. I really like the idea that the main villain is Michael Keaton. I keep calling them the different things. I called him the wrong name with the criminal review. Michael Keaton as the Vulture. And I didn't know about that when they first started. I was like, really, the Vulture? That's what they're going with? But I love what they do, because how they've reimagined him is he's not just some old dude who flies around in a bird costume. He literally is a vulture going around and picking up, scraps of technology that have been left over from all these superhero battles, from all these other movies, and now he's making weapons and selling them. He's become kind of an underworld arms dealer. And for the working class, everyman hero story that they're telling, that is a great villain. I love how they also have the Shocker and the Fixer, and they introduce the Scorpion, all in very cool ways. I really like it. Here's a change that they made, which I think is really cool, and it took me a little while to get this. I like that Peter's high school this time is a school for science and technology. He's not going to, everyday public school. He's going to a specialized school. Because before in all the films and the comic books, what kind of made him unpopular and made him, the loser, was that he was a science nerd. But here in this film, he is still an outcast in a school of science nerds. I liked that. I really liked it. Not only did it make it more interesting for him, but it made it more interesting that all the characters in the film, all the teenage characters you're hanging out with, were smart kids. These weren't stupid people. And I think that's the next thing I really liked about this movie. One thing I love about the Marvel movies, and why the Marvel movies work where I feel the DC ones don't, is each one has its own genre. That's supposed to be the whole point of the crossover, is all these different genres coming together. You've got the spy stuff with Captain America. You've got the high concept fantasy with Thor. You've got the various types of science fiction with Iron Man and Hulk. You've got, the magic with Doctor Strange. You had a heist movie with Ant-Man. And Spider-Man is a teen picture. This is a teen movie, like in the spirit of John Hughes. All right, this is this generation's teen movie, only done so much better. The tropes and the issues that those films have all seemed to be done differently and logically here. It feels so real. The characters, the young actors, they don't feel like they're just reciting lines that no teenager would ever say. They feel like teenagers. They feel like school friends. I also like that they gave Peter Parker a friend. In the comics and in the earlier movies, his only friend was really Harry Osborn. I like how in this one he's got a friend, a new friend, Ned, the big fat kid. Because everybody acquires a friend at some point. It may not be the coolest friend, but it's a friend. And I liked that. I liked all the casting choices. The humor was very, very good. The only thing I have kind of against the humor is that sometimes it felt like it was one of those situations where they were trying to make me laugh and things didn't feel natural, but not so badly. They had a lot of funny lines, and I laughed more often than I didn't. But every now and then it felt. Ned, Peter's friend, who I mentioned a second ago, is one of those comical sidekick characters who he's in there to be a comical sidekick. So it feels like everything he says is a joke, and it's like, I don't know anybody who talks like that. But still, the actor pulls it off. Excuse me. There's a lot of things you can look at here and go, well, that's not like it was in the comics, that's not like it was in the that I've heard other nerds or comic book movie fans or reviewers complain about, and none of them really bugged me. For the sole purpose of, even though it's nowhere near as epic as the original Spider-Man movies, what makes it work is that those movies were already an almost picture-perfect comic-to-screen adaptation. They were already, I can't think of anyone who looks or sounds more like the typical Aunt May than Rosemary Harris from the Tobey Maguires. There's a reason they haven't tried to recast J. Jonah Jameson. Kirsten Dunst is Mary Jane. Cliff Robertson was Uncle Ben. All that. So because we've had already at least 2.5 movies, because again, I don't think Spider-Man 3 is that bad, that did it so well, the fact that a lot of things have been changed here doesn't bug me, because you had to do it differently. I like that Peter has kind of a Tony Stark-esque suit. I like that he's got the computer and all that in there. That's something different. And yeah, it takes away from, him not making the suit himself and not being an everyman hero. But in a way, it's an everyman for this generation because he's a kid dealing with really advanced technology, which is what kids today deal with. So it made sense and it worked. I liked his overly complicated suit. I thought that was really cool. I'm going to touch on this real quick. I know that a lot of people, and it happened when it started, and when she was cast, I know a lot of people had issues with this one girl whose name I can't pronounce. She's a young lady from some Disney show who's playing a character in here named Michelle, and she's an African American actor. And at the very end of the movie, spoiler alert, she says, my friends call me MJ. So the belief is that she is supposed to be playing the Marvel Cinematic Universe version of Mary Jane. And there's been a big hubbub about this from a lot of different places. Here's my thought after having seen the movie. I have no objection to Mary Jane being played by an actor of ethnicity. That sounds stupid, but you know what I mean. I do not care if Mary Jane is Asian, if she's Indian, if she's Pakistani, if she's black, Hispanic, whatever. I have no problem with it. Again, because we've already had a perfect Mary Jane. Now, would I like to see a white redhead? I'm sorry, yeah, because that's the Mary Jane I'm used to. So, but do I mind it? No, not at all. Here's the only thing I mind. at least from my standpoint, the character that she's playing, if she is in fact playing Mary Jane, because if her name's Michelle, how would her name be Mary Jane? I don't think she's supposed to be Mary Jane, but anyway. The character that she's playing is not Mary Jane. You know what I mean? She's supposed to be that snarky, I hate everything, I've got a sarcastic remark for everybody, the world can shove it, quote unquote tough girl who's really just misunderstood and brokenhearted and all that. And she plays it well. She plays that character very, very well. And if that's the character they want to go with, then that's fine. But I don't want them to call her Mary Jane, because that's not Mary Jane's character. I know that's stupid, but it's kind of it's to a much lesser extent, in a not offensive or bad way. It's kind of my same problem I had with Harley Quinn from the Suicide Squad movie. That was not Harley Quinn's character. And yes, I know you have to adapt things for movies and other medium, and people tend to think that because they're comic book characters, you can just take the core of the character and chuck it out anytime you feel like it and redo it. And that's not true. There's a reason these characters have remained beloved for so long. There is a reason that, despite a lot of people complaining about Mary Jane and Peter being married in the movies, or in the comics, I'm sorry, that she's been around for so long. She's been around since the 70s, I believe. And I just don't feel like the characterization that they gave this actress, that's not the Mary Jane I know, so it's not the one I'm familiar with. Did she do a good job? Yes. Do I like the character she played? Yeah, I did. I thought it was a fun character, and she played it really well. I hope they don't call her Mary Jane. I have no objection to her being there, being the love interest, whatever. I know that's a kind of a ramble, but it's just something on my head. On the subject of love interest, that's something else I really loved about this movie, that I liked what they did. So once again, Peter has that girl who he's always staring at, and he's dreaming of being with. But what I liked about this movie is that was not the be-all and end-all of his motivations. That was just another example. It was not a, oh, my whole life is about getting this girl. That worked in the Tobey Maguire films. But one of the reasons it worked there is because it hadn't been done quite in that way, either before or in a long time, or that well. Now, every superhero has done it. That's, the last two Spider-Man movies sucked because of it. So, because of that, I really liked that they didn't make the girl the object again. That she was just another thing, kind of another person there that he had to sacrifice for. As I'm saying this, since this is a high school picture, I'm kind of stretch out the runtime. This is nostalgic for me. I'm actually driving past my old high school right now, so I'm going to do something I don't normally do. I'm going to lift up the I don't know if you're getting that. Jugiak Mustangs, baby. So yeah, high school movie made me kind of nostalgic. This is not far from my house, so I just came to do a lap. Anyway, but on that, however, I think I have to stress this though. There is a downside to this film, and something that I understand why they did it this way, but I think it's what makes the film feel a little hollow to me. I like how, because we've seen these movies before, they didn't waste a lot of time with an origin story. It's not another Spider Bite, Uncle Ben, all that nonsense. Not nonsense, but you know what I mean. That stuff's been covered, so they kind of go into this one with him already, he's already got his powers, he's already being Spider-Man. We don't go into a lot of that. And a lot of the film is Peter trying to prove himself to Tony Stark, trying to be, he wants to be one of the main Avengers, and so the whole thing is him trying to, live up to that. The problem is, and again, this is where it gets kind of slipshod, in my opinion, is that the core of Spider-Man's character is guilt. It is that letting Uncle Ben die, and then those words, with great power comes great responsibility. As hokey and as overplayed as it sounds, that's what makes Spider-Man different from all of the other superheroes. And it's okay with me that they didn't make the movie about that we didn't do another tired origin story. But I would have liked it if Uncle Ben had gotten a mention, or if he'd had a picture of him up on the wall that in a moment of indecisiveness and he looks up at, and that gives him the strength. Or something to that effect. Or he says, or maybe tells a story, my uncle once used to tell me, this kind of stuff, and I'm trying to live up to that. Because I feel like not having that is what kind of made the movie a little weaker than it could have been. I feel that's why it's not quite as powerful. And I'm okay with it just being a fun movie, like I say, being an everyman story. But I think that losing that bit with Uncle Ben and losing that connection is what makes it feel a little limp. Okay, I'm going to do this real quick before I kind of wrap up. I want to kind of get a nice shot. Everybody see that? Yeah, because I couldn't tell if you see it. Shugyak Mustangs, class of '97. Yeah, it's kind of doing a. Yeah, sorry, I just had to do this since we're talking Spider-Man. All right, anyway, so yeah, I think that's what kind of put it a little bit on the defensive for me, and made it a good movie, but not a great movie. It was fun. It was good Spider-Man. It's a return to form. The character was fun and having a good time and being lighthearted, but still learning lessons. Good, but I think not having that bit with Uncle Ben hurt it. So that's me. Okay, so I'm still a few minutes from home. For those who don't know, I'm in Alaska right now, and it's 11 o'clock at night, and this is how bright it is for all the people in Tennessee who are watching this. And this is actually hazed over because there's a forest fire going on somewhere, so we got some haze. But yeah, this is how bright it is at 11 o'clock at night. So for this last little bit, I want to do something for Spider-Man. So a big thing on the internet now, and with some of the channels I watch, is fantasy booking. It starts with whatculture.com and how they should have booked certain wrestling angles, and other people do how they should do movies and whatnot. Again, Movie Bob does it. So I have an idea, and this is kind of what I would like to see them do with Spider-Man going forward. This is what I think, if it was me, if I was in charge at Marvel and I was in charge of the Spider-Man franchise, this is what I would do. Forget all these crappy things Sony wants to do. This is what I would do. So obviously this is going to get sequels. So I would say part 2 is a little bit more of the same, just amped up a little bit. Get him in there. They introduce the Scorpion. You could bring the Vulture back. Maybe get him in there with the Sinister Six. Maybe a bunch of villains we haven't seen before. But kind of that same thing of, regular guy going up against other regular guys with superpowers. Cool. All right. In part 3, this is important. In part 3, his enemy, and I'm going to mispronounce the character's name, Baston. Baston, for those who don't know, was the first villain in the run in the early 2000s. In the run written by J. Michael Straczynski. Baston was basically a vampire who fed off of people with animal energy. They started this whole storyline of, was the spider trying to get to Peter to give him the powers before he got hit by the radiation, or was it the radiation that gave the spider the powers? Anyway, so Bastion is like this vampire who goes around, and he's like almost impossible to defeat. It's this battle, you think Peter's going to die and all that. So, that's who he fights in part 3. So then what you do, so you've done all 3 moves. Now you do a big blowout, much like they did with the Avengers. This, you do basically a miniature Avengers here with Spider-Man, because what they did recently with Baston in some of the comics was a storyline called Spider-Verse, where it turns out Bastion is like this part of this interdimensional family of vampires who basically jump from all these alternative realities to hunt spider people to feed off of. So what you do, and you can do it like a 2-parter, because you make it big and epic, is you do that storyline for like parts 4 and 5. And in that storyline, what you do is you introduce some of these supporting characters that have popped up recently in Spider-Man movies or Spider-Man comics that would take way too long to establish in their own movies. But you can just plop them in and say they're from alternate realities. For instance, some great characters that they have recently from this run, Silk, who is a Japanese girl who also got bitten by the spider that Peter got bit by, and has been living in isolation for years. In that storyline, they introduced Spider-Gwen, who is Gwen Stacy, only in her reality, she got bit by the spider, and she became Spider-Girl or Spider-Woman. You can introduce Miles Morales, who people want to see, the Black Spider-Man. So you can introduce, so right there, because by the time you get to a 4th and 5th movie, Tom Holland is probably going to want to start going off and do other things. So right there, and they've introduced the idea of alternative realities in Doctor Strange. So again, right there, you've got 3 new characters for 3 new sets of movies. And 3 new characters that represent people who really need to be represented in superhero movies. You have a black superhero. You have a girl superhero. You have an Asian superhero. All right? You can count those on one hand. Of a bad woodshop teacher, actually. So you can set those characters up and then go off and do their movies and say they're happening in an alternate reality, so they're still connected to the Marvel universe, but they're not weighed down by the continuity and all that. So you got 3 new franchises right there. But here's the kicker. This is the last thing I want to say before I wrap up. So, for this Spider-Verse, where all these spider people from different dimensions are teaming up, you get a dump truck full of Disney money, and you drive it up to Andrew Garfield, yes, I'm going to include him in this, and Tobey Maguire's house, and you get them to come back and reprise their Spider-Man roles. Because how cool would that be? Because that's something that never happens outside of Doctor Who. You never get a character that's been played by multiple actors. You never get them, a bunch of those actors back together to play their characters playing off each other. You don't get Sean Connery, Roger Moore, George Lazenby, Timothy Dalton, Pierce Brosnan, and Daniel Craig all playing James Bond working together. You don't get Michael Keaton, Ben Affleck, George Clooney, Val Kilmer, and Christian Bale all playing Batman together. But here you have a perfect setup to have Tom Holland, Andrew Garfield, and Tobey Maguire all playing their Spider-Men all together, all at the same time. So not only would that now make all those Spider-Man movies retroactively part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but it gives you a chance to see all those characters. And I didn't like the Amazing Spider-Man movies. They're shit, but I'd include Andrew Garfield because, people liked him, and he should be in there. So that's what I think they should do. And I know I'd pay all the money in the world to see that, and I'd pay all the money to see a Spider-Gwen, Silk, and Miles Spider-Women movies. So that's my idea. Anyway, so hope you enjoyed this. Long story short, Homecoming, good, not great, not epic, But a fun Spider-Man movie. I enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun watching it. I had a lot of fun with the person I was seeing it with. So I really dug it. From the sounds of it, a lot of people did too. Again, nothing earth-shattering, but I don't think it had to be. I think it could be what it wanted to be. So, anyway, thanks for watching. I want to say I'll be back later with War for the Planet of the Apes, but again, that review is probably going to be uploaded shortly after this one, and it's dark because I'm in the garage. So, you won't have to wait too long for it. So, anyway, till I see everybody again, drive safe, and I'll see you at the movies.